Picture move-in day. Doors open, people stream in, and then the temporary network dies. Printers, badge readers, VoIP, everything flickers. Tenants call the desk, and nobody can say who put that gear in place. Welcome to Built, Wired, and Secured. I'm Alex Morgan. Today, we dig into why short-term power, networks, and access systems too often turn into long-term headaches, and what you can do in the first 48 hours to stop the bleed. Michael, James, thanks for joining.
Glad to be here, Alex.
Whoa, what happened in that move-in story? Give us the short version.
Contractor left a temporary switch and labeled it Do Not Touch. Months later, a tenant's closet got tied into it through an improvised feed. On day one of occupancy, the switch choked under load and elevators stopped reporting correctly. People were trapped on the phone and the ops desk had zero idea who owned the device. From an operational standpoint, that lack of ownership is the repeating pattern I see.
Right. And it isn't only outages. You create maintenance blind spots. No CMMS entry, no firmware schedule, no spare parts. Preventive maintenance beats emergency repairs every time. If a temporary asset isn't visible, it never gets preventive care.
Let's unpack why this keeps happening. Speed and budget pressure push teams to accept interim fixes. Contracts and handoffs are fuzzy. Michael, what's the most common ownership gap you see?
The simplest way to put it, the contractor assumes facilities will take it. Facilities assumes IT will take it, and IT assumes the contractor will remove it. No timed approval, no named owner, no expiry. That's how temporary becomes permanent by omission. That's fine until it fails.
And budgets play a role. Teams say they'll replace it later, but later never comes. James, you want to add?
Exactly. You target temporary in your head, but not in your systems. No tag, no CMMS entry, no schedule. Then a rented switch is still powering badge readers 2 years later, and nobody knew to check its health.
Okay, so we have human and process causes, but there are technical trade-offs too. Speed versus safety. Michael, when can you reasonably accept a temporary workaround, and when do you insist on hardening immediately?
Rule of thumb. Accept a temporary only with a documented, enforceable expiration and a decommission plan. If it touches security or life safety, access control, emergency power, harden it now. Always ask, what breaks if this goes down? If the impact affects tenant safety or core services, you don't leave it provisional.
I hear you, but pushback happens from procurement. We don't have budget to harden every feed. Are we literally expected to harden everything on site?
No, you're not hardening everything. You prioritize by impact. If you can't harden, you must at minimum time box the install, name an owner, and put monitoring in place. Otherwise, the false economy is you save now and pay much more later when something critical fails.
A middle path works. Instrument the temporary device so it reports health, add it to CMMS as temporary with a review date, and require escalation triggers. That keeps costs down while avoiding invisible failures. Trust the process. Visibility forces action.
Good compromise. Monitoring as a low-friction control. Easy to mandate. Let's talk contractor friction. Teams resist extra paperwork or decommission steps. Michael, how do you enforce the right behavior without slowing projects?
Keep documentation minimal and mandatory. 2 items, a temporary install approval that names an owner and an expiration date, and a decommission plan attached to the work order. Make that 1-page requirement part of procurement. If a vendor can't provide it, they don't get the work. Simple rules are enforceable. Long PDFs are not.
And insist on an asset tag and CMMS entry. Even a temporary tag gets the device into your lifecycle visibility. Preventative maintenance becomes possible the moment the item is visible in your systems.
Let's get concrete with outcomes. When these temporary systems persist, what are the real downstream impacts on maintenance, security, and tenants? James, start us off.
Undocumented gear becomes unknown failure points. No spare parts, no firmware schedule, no inclusion in emergency scripts. The best day in operations is the one nobody notices. Temporary turned permanent makes that day unlikely. You end up reacting instead of preventing.
Tenants feel it immediately. Printers, POS, badge readers, if those fail, tenants call the building. That degrades trust and, over time, affects renewals and retention. From an operational standpoint, the business cost of an undocumented temporary often outweighs the upfront savings.
Okay, real examples help drive this home. Michael, short incident and what fixed it?
We had a breaker panel marked temporary left in the basement for months. It ended up powering a tenant closet through an improvised feed and failed during a load test. What worked was a 2-item sign-off, temporary install approved with expiration, and a required decommission plan. That policy forced visibility and ownership and stopped recurrence.
We had a pop-up retailer using a rented wireless bridge for POS. It wasn't monitored and pocket drops turned into failed transactions. We introduced a 1-page contractor checklist demanding minimum telemetry and an owner contact. Within weeks, repeat support calls dropped by roughly half. Visibility changed behavior.
That's the payoff. Small process changes that reduce surprise work. For listeners approving temporary work tomorrow, let's run a tight, prioritized 48-hour checklist. Michael, what's first?
Item 1. Require a temporary install approval with an explicit expiration date and a named owner responsible for monitoring and decommissioning.
Item 2. Asset tag the device and create a CMMS entry labeled temporary with a review date. Even that short lifecycle entry forces follow-up.
Item 3. Minimum telemetry. If the unit can't report basic health, require scheduled manual checks and a named escalation contact. Item 4. Security or life safety gating. Any device touching those systems must be hardened or escalated immediately.
And add a short handover meeting, 30 minutes at project close to transfer documentation, asset tags, and the decommission plan. That half hour saves hours of troubleshooting later.
To sum up, if it's temporary, make it visible and time-boxed. Visibility enables preventative maintenance, and preventative maintenance beats emergency repairs every time.
Quick recap for listeners. Require a dated approval and decommission plan. Own it. Tag and log temporary assets. Bring them into CMMS. Ensure minimum monitoring or scheduled checks. Never leave provisional systems touching life safety or security without hardening. And hold a short handover meeting at project close. If you want the 1-page checklist and contract language, download it from our episode page.
One last thing. Always start decisions with, what breaks if this goes down? That keeps choices tied to business impact, not convenience.
And remember, the best day in operations is when nobody notices the systems. Make temporary visible and accountable, and you'll get closer to that day.
That wraps up this episode of Built, Wired, and Secured. Today, we explored how temporary services can become permanent operational debt and what to do differently in the first 48 hours to prevent it. Thanks to Michael Harrington and James Rogers for practical operational advice. If this episode helped, download the Temporary Services Checklist from our show page to get the approval form, decommission template, and contractor checklist you can use immediately. Built to last, wired with intention, secured for the real world.